What a great setup. Good morning. Well, thanks so much. It's great to be here. Always great to be back in Central Florida. As you may see, the subject today is Florida Prepaid. We got some great announcements on that. Before I begin, just want to recognize a lot of the folks we have with us here today. We have our Commissioner of Education for the state of Florida, Manny Diaz, as well as our Chancellor for the State University System, Ray Rodriguez. Our Board Chairman for Florida Prepaid, Ambassador John Rood, is with us. And I asked him if he has any more eligibility for football. He doesn't, but former Florida State star and Lottery Secretary John Davis is with us. We've also have President of the University of Central Florida, Dr. Alexander Cartwright, President of Valencia College, Kathleen Plinsky, Orange County Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Maria Vasquez, and Seminole County parent of two, who you will hear from, Patricia Rush. So now we're here today to highlight some opportunities for Florida parents, but also potentially some benefits that they have yet to claim under this program. But before we get into that, it is great to point out that Florida, for the last 2 years, has ranked #1 in higher education, public higher education throughout the country. Actually, I'm sorry. That's all of education 2 years in a row, been #1 higher. We've been that way for the last 6 years. Part of what we've done is we have a great 4-year graduation rate. I mean, our view is you get in there, get the degree, and get them out of there. Some universities, they have an incentive that people stay 5 or 6 years because they get more money from the tuition, but we don't want that to happen. We don't want kids to have to go into debt. We want you to go in, do your work, and then live your life. We have the lowest in-state tuition and fees of all 50 states for our residents. And if you look most recently, we had the Forbes ranking, University of Florida, #4 in America for public universities. 8 Florida institutions improved their rankings, and for the first time, Florida A&M earned a spot on the list. And so we have been seeing that. We've been seeing the success, and we're happy to do that. Now, that's great, and you want to have good quality. But we have held the line. So not only do we have the lowest tuition, we have not increased tuition 1 red cent since I've been the governor of the state. And so if you look at recent numbers, the most recent numbers we had were that for all of our Florida undergraduates, 77% were loan-free during the school year in the most recent numbers we have. That is incredible. I mean, it's just standard practice that people are taking out all these loans. And I think we've seen over the years that there was kind of, and I remember when I was going to school, they said, you got to go to the 4-year college, you just got to get that degree. So a lot of people they went into debt, they ended up getting degrees, which honestly, in some of these institutions were not things that were great. And it's like one thing if you're at a state university and you have to take out some loans, but when you're paying 50, 60, 70,000 tuition, I think tuition's even more than that some places. I mean, that adds up very quickly. And so you've had this real albatross of costs that have been imposed. And look, students agree to sign this. I mean, it's not like you relieve them of responsibility, but they were told that this was somehow their ticket to success and that all this loan was going to be worth it. And if you end up getting degrees from MIT, is it going to be worth it? Yeah, probably, right? But if you get degrees, from some 4th-tier private university that charges more than Harvard, and you get a degree in zombie studies, not probably the pathway to success. So we know that, and I think we've been very keyed on that in Florida throughout the whole time. Now, so that's great. And if you just go and your kid becomes graduates high school, wants to go to state university, it's not easy to get into a lot of these universities anymore. It used to be a lot easier. You go, and you're going to have the lowest tuition in the country. And so some parents can just, are in a position to just write that check and do it. And that's fine. And if you can't do that, you can basically work part-time jobs as a student and pay for the tuition and fees. No question, that is very, very attainable. But there's also other ways that you can make it even more affordable, and the Florida Prepaid College Savings Program is one of those. I mean, this is the national model across the country for college savings. I think a lot of Florida parents know about it, but not as many as maybe we would like. This is a way for you to prepay for your child's future education at any of our state colleges or state universities. You can lock in today's tuition costs at today's prices. And so, yes, we haven't raised tuition here in Florida, but if you have a newborn now, who knows what'll happen in the intervening years between now and the time they turn 18. So you have the lowest tuition rates in the country, and you can lock it in through the Florida Prepaid program, and that's what they do. This program looks to see what tuition is, and it adjusts accordingly for that. And the program, it's great because this is not like you pay into it and then your kid ends up getting a scholarship to Notre Dame and then like you lose it. No, you can apply it to out of state. You could apply it to trade schools. You can give it to a sibling, one of your other kids if you want to, and you can get a refund at any point while you're doing that. And so you can cancel it and get a full refund. You can transfer it to another family member. And if you have a child that does go to a state university and they qualify for Bright Futures, you get a refund, and the Bright Futures applies, and you get your money back that you paid into it, either full or in part, depending on the level of Bright Futures that you've been able to do. So this is the largest program of its kind in the country. There's been over 1.2 million Florida families who've taken advantage of it. Now, this year has been monumental because we were able to say, first we did in 2020, thanks to the board, and then again in 2024, we have been able to lower the prices for prepaid by a total of $2.6 billion in the last 4 years. And so that means this is more affordable than it's ever been. And as part of lowering that, as part of recognizing that tuition in Florida hasn't gone up, what the prepaid board has done is they have authorized $850 million worth of refunds to prepaid families. And so a lot of those families have taken those refunds. There is, though, still a lot of money that's outstanding. And so we want to, one, let parents know that this program's available, but two, for those who are involved in the program, if you haven't claimed your refund, you can go onto your account and claim the refund. There's over $130 million that's just sitting there for people to claim. And I think the average refund when they did the first round of this in 2020 was about $4,500. They did it again there. I think it was about $2,500, $2,600. That's just going basically right into your pocket. So you continue to get the benefits, but then you get the money back. What other state would be sending you money back? I mean, seriously. If you overpaid in a state like California or New York, would they send you your money back? They would spend it on something else. You know that that's true. So the fact that here we are not only authorizing reduction in prices for the program by $2.6 billion, but also saying, hey, here's $850 million over the last 4 years, and we still have $130 million out there that people haven't claimed yet. Please claim this. We could very easily just be quiet about it, pocket it, do it, all that stuff. But that's not how we roll here. So we want to make sure people are able to get what they want. So that's a great story. We urge parents to get the refunds that are available, but we also, just any parent out there, just know that this is a program where you can lock in. And look, when you're raising, there's so many things that go into raising kids, especially as they're teenagers. Not an easy time, but it's like the anxiety of how do you afford college. That's a big part of anxiety for a lot of families throughout this country. Well, that does not have to be a source of anxiety here in the state of Florida. If you're in this program, I think the lowest plan is like $35 a month that you can do. You can pay more if you want to pay it off quicker or have that more benefits, but there's a wide range of options for people to be able to do. And if you want to get your money back, you can get it back. If you want to send it to a sibling, you can. If you get Bright Futures, a refund. If you go out of state, you still do it. So I don't think that there's any program in the country that matches this. I certainly don't think there's any places that are reducing the price of it by $2.6 billion. And I know there's no place that's refunded, authorized $850 million in refunds. Interestingly enough, we just had on Friday afternoon, we had a celebration in Tallahassee at the governor's residence for the Lake Mary Little League World Series champions. They are the first team in the history of the state of Florida to win the Little League World Series championship. And, you know, we've sent a lot of teams over the years. We've had teams like the old Belmont Heights team from Tampa that had big leaguers that ended up doing so we've had a lot of great teams. They're the first one to be able to win it all, and it was a really exciting finish. I would have gone, but we went to Dublin to help cheer on Florida State, and it didn't work out as well. Lake Mary did a little bit better than that, but that's fine. And so they were able to do something no one else has done. So we did an event. Now, it was not the best weather in the world. We had rain. Tallahassee, I think it rained all last week, all the way until Friday night. And we had a dunk tank where you can throw and hit. I knocked one of my staff members in the dunk tank. We had a radar gun. We had all this stuff. So we had local little leaguers and young softball players, baseball players from the community came and really looking up to these kids. And so we were able to award them the Governor's Sports Award, which I'm sure is probably just going to be one medal of a bunch of stuff they've gotten. But what we were also able to do through the Florida Prepaid College Plan is we were able to award every member of the Lake Mary Little League World Series team a prepaid scholarship for 2 years at any Florida university or college. And I told them, who knows what they're going to do? But they played. There was like 30,000 people for that game, for a Little League game. And I told the kids, I was like, unless you make it to the College World Series in Omaha, or unless you make it to the big leagues, you will never play in front of more people than that. It's just the way baseball is. You're just not going to get crowds of that magnitude. And so that's a pretty big stage, and they really did this community proud, and they did the state of Florida proud. So that was the least that we can do. And then they also were acknowledged after the first quarter at the Florida State-Memphis game. And that gave the fans something that they could cheer for that, for sure. That was a really, really good thing. Now, final word on this. This is a good program. This is not like we want you to use this money for you. Like, it's not about us. We've got a massive surplus. We cut taxes. We've paid down 36% of the entire history of Florida. We've paid down 36% of the debt just since I've been governor. We're good. We don't need your money. This is a way for you to benefit and have flexibility. So any Florida family that wants to sign up for Florida Prepaid, Florida Prepaid is giving families a $50 gift card for any family that opens a Florida prepaid plan or savings plan before October 28th. So it's a little enticement to be able to do it. And again, this is a program that's meant to benefit families. When there's more money in the kitty, it's going back to you in your pockets. This is not money that is going to be squandered. And I can guarantee you this, as long as I'm kicking and screaming, we're going to hold the line on tuition at our state colleges and universities. So this is great achievement to be able to lower the prices by $2.6 billion, deliver $850 million in refunds. And if you have a plan and you haven't claimed your refund, log on to your account, check it out, because you may have a couple $1,000s coming your way. So thanks everybody for being a part of this, and we're going to hear from some of our speakers. So we'll start with our chairman of the board, John Rood. Thank you, John.
Governor, thank you so much. I happened to be at that event on Friday, at the Capitol or at the mansion, and the weather was just horrible. And the governor comes out and talks for a few minutes, and then says to the players, "Okay, let's go dunk some of my staff members." And he goes out there in the rain with all these young kids, and they're throwing that ball and dunking this poor guy who has to climb up. I did that once. It's not so bad getting dunked. It's climbing out of that water up over and over and over. But anyways, you were great with them. It was a wonderful, wonderful event. And we at Florida Prepaid are proud to be a part of it. I'm the chairman of Florida Prepaid, and it's exciting to be able to be here and talk about this incredible refund. And it's not just cash refund. It's also refund reducing the debt when some of our families financed it. But it wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for the governor's policy. And I hope you stay kicking and screaming for a while and keep this tuition flat, because it enables us to do what we're doing here. Most of the points that I have in my long notes here were covered, so I won't reiterate. But I did want to stress that we have 40,000 families that still have refunds coming. That's $130 million cash refunds. Those that had the debt reduced, it's not as complicated. We can just reduce the debt. I want to give you a website that you can look up if you suspect you might have a refund. It's myfloridaprepaid.com/low prices. And I hope we can get that out there in the paper. Our staff is working tirelessly to try to get this money out to the policyholders. They'll never lose it. When they come to use the money, when their child's about to go to college, they'll then reach out to us and we'll be able to, square it up. But we would like to do it as soon as possible so they can convert to a 529 or use that money for some other purpose that's important to them. Before I close, I want to tell you very briefly, why I am so excited about Florida Prepaid and why I've been doing this now for, I think, almost 10 years. Not only do we provide families with a path, a very affordable path and a very fair path to pay for college, but we set the expectation. And I think that's one thing that is so important, that when a child knows something has been paid for, his parents, his grandparents paid this so that they could attend college or a trade school, they want to live up to that opportunity, and they want to make their parents or their grandparents proud. So that expectation of college, I believe, is equally important. So with that, I would just encourage those of you that don't have a plan to consider it. I have plans for my kids and all 10 grandkids now, which they'll be even more excited about it later on, but their parents are real excited about it. So I would encourage all of you to look into this. And I thank you very much, Governor, for the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
Great to be here today with Governor DeSantis. Governor, thanks for your leadership. And the Florida prepaid college plans now allow families to pay for the cost of higher ed over a longer period of time, as you've heard before. And Florida's worked hard to ensure that attaining higher education degree is affordable to everyone. As the governor mentioned, he's been holding the line on tuition from a traditional four-year degree to an associate's degree or workforce program. Tuition affordability is one of the key reasons that you heard that the governor said that Florida's ranked #1 by U.S. News and World Report. But we're also ranked #1 for educational freedom for 3 years in a row by the Heritage Foundation. And I want to highlight some of the other things that go along with just not Florida Prepaid. You know, so many choices and freedom that parents and students have that go along with this. Not only the ability to save and have this program for college, but when you think about it, when a student starts in Florida, when they start school, they have access to universal pre-K. When they get into the K-12 system, we have universal choice for all of our students across the board, K through 12. And that also includes a huge charter school space where we have 700 schools, almost 400,000 students across the state, and all of the programs that our districts have created. When we talk about choice, it's not just charter or the scholarship or ESA, it's also the programs that our districts have put together and our virtual, Florida virtual program. Then when you get through that, you have the opportunity to apply and qualify for a Bright Futures, which would cover your 2-year school, your certificate, or your 4-year schooling. And then, in addition to that, we have a robust dual enrollment program in our state where students have the ability to get an associate's degree at no cost before they even leave high school. So when you're talking about putting a dent in the cost of college, putting a dent in this debt, this governor has it right. As you can see, it's not just one program, it's a landscape, and Florida Prepaid is a huge part of that. It's important to highlight also the fact that Florida Prepaid is not just used for our universities, but you can purchase a prepaid plan to use at one of our 28 state colleges. Florida colleges are not the junior colleges of the past. Our colleges offer 2-year degrees and have 4-year bachelor degrees programs, along with hundreds of certificate programs. Florida's the leader in education choice. That is clear, but that extends also to our higher ed. There are 3 Florida prepaid plans that you can purchase to use at Florida colleges. The 2-year Florida college plan is geared toward a student earning an associate's degree or workforce certification. The 4-year Florida college plan is aimed at students pursuing a bachelor's degree, and the 2+2 Florida college plan is for students who want to attend a 2-year Florida college and then transfer to the state university system for the remaining 2 years. As you can see, we've seen so much success across the board in Florida in education, but it is because of the leadership that we have and because of the programs that have been put in place. In fact, 57% of Florida's high school graduates that stay in Florida, pursue higher education, attend the Florida college, and a lot of them go on to our university system. Some of the best and brightest minds start off with these 2-year programs and then go on, and that's another way to save money. So I'm very proud to stand here with Governor DeSantis, as Florida is clearly #1 in education, and he is clearly the education governor. Thank you, Governor.
Good morning. Good morning. It is indeed an honor to be here today, standing next to Governor DeSantis and representing the Florida State University system. As the governor shared, since 2017, our system's been ranked #1 in the nation in higher education. That is our system and the Florida college system together. And for the last 2 years, our state's been #1 overall, from K-12 all the way through the university system, and that's something to be proud of. Today we're here to celebrate what's happening with Florida Prepaid, and I just want to touch on tuition. The governor mentioned we have the lowest tuition in the nation, and that's correct. Our tuition is just over $6,000. If you were to look at the national average is just under $12,000. That means our tuition is about half for in-state undergraduate tuition, the national average. That isn't an accident. That occurs with intention. You have a governor that has refused to allow tuition increases in the state because higher education is viewed as a socioeconomic ladder and it needs to be accessible to everyone. He's also tremendously invested in workforce education, which is part of the reason we've seen such the great success in our Florida college system. I know everyone looks at Florida Prepaid and they see it as an investment. And I was speaking with someone on the trip over here who said it's more than an investment. And it is. It's an investment in your child's future. But it's a contract. It allows you, the parent, to lock in today's tuition rate and be guaranteed that is the tuition that will be charged to your child when they attend our university or our Florida college system. And I've just told you it's the lowest in the nation by a lot, by 50%. Some of you were in an elementary school, may have a child in elementary school, and you may be thinking, okay, in the next 10 years, should I consider this? Should I consider this now for what's coming down the pike? Let me give you a little perspective. In the last 10 years across the nation, tuition has increased 35%. Not in Florida. In Florida, we have not had a tuition increase during that period, but the national average, 35%. If you have a newborn and you're looking at whether you should make this investment, let's go back a little further and look at the last 20 years. In the last 20 years across the nation, tuition has increased 185%. There is no better deal in the country right now than to make an investment in Florida Prepaid for your child. Amen. And so I encourage everyone to do so. Governor, thank you for your leadership on this issue. And I'll just close with this. Because the governor has been a champion of keeping education affordable, I believe we're one of the last state university systems in the nation where a student can end their spring semester, spend their summer working full-time at a minimum wage job, and at the conclusion of summer have earned enough money to pay their tuition and fees for the following spring and semester system. We are keeping it possible in Florida to work your way through, but help your child out. Buy Florida Prepaid and give them that head start. Thank you.
And probably can work over the summer at higher than minimum wage. I mean, it's like we've got people coming, you got people like, restaurants, all this other stuff. People can do well, and we're proud of that. Okay, so it's great to have everybody that's kind of involved in this one way or another tell folks why this is good, but it's, I think, even better to have somebody who has actually utilized it tell you why it's been a good deal. So I'm proud to be able to recognize mother of two, Patricia Rush.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me to speak, Governor DeSantis. I'm honored to stand here before you and explain why Florida Prepaid is so important to me and to my family. I am a Knight. I graduated from the University of Central Florida. But my parents did not have Florida Prepaid. But I did qualify for Bright Futures, and I spent my entire senior year of high school figuring out how I was going to pay for my 4 years, applying to every scholarship I could possibly come up with in order to qualify. So when we had our son a few years after I graduated from college, I really felt passionately about the fact that I wanted to give him the gift of higher education. Like, it was important to me that when he graduated from high school that we were able to give him this gift. So we locked in his rates 2 months after he was born. He's actually about to graduate from high school this year, which is really exciting, and we were able to get it at such an affordable rate. We decided to do the same thing for our daughter, who was born 2 years later. Her program, though, was even better than his, because about a year ago, my sister told me, hey, there's money to be claimed. And I thought, what are you talking about? She said, Florida Prepaid, go log into your account. I just got $5,000 back for my niece's tuition. So I went in and checked, and sure enough, there was $15,000 waiting for me for Olivia's plan. So we were able to claim that reimbursement and reinvest it for her. So when she graduates in 2027, her $15,000 would have grown even more, and she'll be able to take that to help with other expenses that she has. I just feel very passionate that parents need to know about this program, that they need to think about it when you have that little baby and you're thinking 18 years sounds like a really long time, but it's not. It comes so fast, and before you know it, you're thinking about college and where you're going to send them and how you're going to pay for it, and there's no greater gift than the gift of education. It's something no one can ever take away from you. It's something that you can use for the rest of your life, and I feel very blessed that my husband and I made this decision, and we were able to give our 2 kids the gift of higher education, and I encourage families across Florida to research this program, to look at it, ask your neighbors, ask your friends, because there's probably somebody who has utilized it, and really take advantage of what Florida has to offer. It's the greatest state in the union.
So again, if this isn't, it sounds good, you give you a $50 gift card. It used to be able to, you could go and buy your family dinner at like a fast cash. You can't even afford. I mean, like, we went to Waffle House yesterday. Family of 5, and I mean, it is what it is. So, but $50 doesn't go as far as it used to, but still nice to have. And so you'll be able to do that. And again, $850 million in refunds have been authorized, but we have over $130 million that have not been claimed yet. So please look at that and do what's best for you and your family. And I'm excited about this. I'm excited about the momentum we continue to build, and we're going to make sure that folks have attainable higher education. High quality, of course, but attainable. And we don't want to see folks having to go deep into debt just to be able to try to advance themselves. And Florida Prepaid shows you don't have to do that. Bright Future shows you don't have to do that. And just holding the line on tuition for our in-state residents shows that you don't have to do that. So thanks for everybody that's been involved. And with that, I'm happy to take a question or two.
Would you suspend permanent anesthesia removed from morale if she's reelected?
I would just refer you to the Florida Constitution. The governor has authority to suspend county-wide elected officials if they're engaged in misfeasance, malfeasance, drunkenness, neglect of duty. There is no constitutional authority as that applies to a state representative, and so that's not in the governor's purview. And so we take that responsibility seriously, because I think that provision of the Constitution was put in there to ensure that these officials are doing their jobs, and they're not neglecting duties, and there does need to be a check and balance on that. So that's what we've done, and that's a duty that I've discharged across the state when appropriate.
Have you talked to President Trump since yesterday's assassination attempt, and if so, what did he say?
I have not talked to him yet. I did announce yesterday we're going to be doing a state-level investigation. I understand that the feds are involved, but we do believe that there were multiple violations of state law. We also believe that there's a need to make sure that the truth about all this comes out in a way that's credible. I mean, I look at the federal government, with all due respect to them. Those same agencies that are prosecuting Trump in that jurisdiction are now going to be investigating this. I just think that may not be the best thing for this country. Nevertheless, they have their prerogative, but we have our prerogative, and so we'll be making an announcement further along those lines in the ensuing days.
Governor,
Yes, ma'am.
Governor, can we ask you about the news release last week about the arrest of a petition gatherer, and the wording in the FPLE press release was for petition fraud on the personal use of marijuana initiative. Some have raised questions that this misleads voters because it didn't say that it did not involve Amendment 3.
So I think what they said is accurate. I think this was, this weed thing's been going on for a long time, and so this was somebody who had submitted fraudulent petitions, I think, during the 2022 cycle. That's a fraud. I mean, we're not going to turn our backs on that. There are also examples of some of these petition gatherers that submitted petitions on behalf of dead voters, and the supervisors didn't accept that because they looked and saw they were dead. But that's still a fraud. You're submitting petitions on behalf of dead people, you are committing a fraud. And what's gone on in this petition stuff is it's just become a cottage industry of nonsense. You have petitions that are being submitted and voters are asked, say, I never signed that. How does that happen? How do we get to a point where that can happen? So I think they've had a lot of credible complaints. They've investigated the Election Crimes Office. They've referred the appropriate cases to law enforcement for prosecution. And I think that's what should end up happening. But don't kid yourself and act like this whole petition process. There's a lot of money that's at stake here. People make money off the petition process. There's an incentive to commit fraud. The legislature's tried to address it, but I don't think that they've addressed it adequately. And so then you end up with these signatures come in, and if they're not matching, how do you police that? So there definitely was fraud that was committed on behalf of people that have been participating in this petition process. That is clear. The extent of it and the impact of it, that remains to be seen. But clearly that has happened.
Governor, some parents, they want. There's been a rise in violence across high schools, middle schools across Central Florida, specifically Lyman High School. There was a gun that was brought to campus. Parents are scared. What is your response to all of these threats on campuses across Central Florida? Well,
Florida takes school safety more seriously than any state in the country. We've done more to invest in resources, whether it's school resource officers, whether it's other accoutrements that can help deter anything happening at our schools. And so I think that we continue to stand by and work with our school districts to help. We've also gone even above and beyond that. I mean, we've provided funding for security at Jewish day schools in light of October 7th in particular, but even before that when you have anti-Semitic threats and attacks. So this is something that I think we need to be united against. And if people are issuing some of these threats, like an idle threat, we take that very seriously. Even if you have no intent on following through with it, that creates a lot of consternation in the community. It creates a lot of anxiety with parents, and we will absolutely hold you responsible.
Governor, we've heard from several parents who want to see walk-through metal detectors at schools because of the threats, because of some guns found at Orange County schools, I know, piloted a metal detector program at a few high schools last year, but determined it was because of cost and staffing that they wouldn't continue that.
Well, it's also an interruption to the experience, right? So I think that's a school district's prerogative to make those decisions. I think the school funding we have could be applied for that if that's what people wanted. But I would note, they tried to do that in Broward at the beginning of the school year. And these kids are waiting in line for like 45, 50 minutes. And so is that the best way to do it? I think a lot of people look at that and say that may not be the best way to do it. But ultimately, I don't know that Orange County is the same as Okaloosa or that Duval's the same as Polk. And so I think these districts can make those determinations as they see fit. But that would definitely not be something we would mandate be done throughout the state of Florida. Did you have something over here?
Same question.
Okay.
Can we go back to Amendment 4? I don't think we touched on this, on the alleged petition fraud and sending election police to homes.
So if there's evidence of fraud, then they are going to follow through. So if there's a signature that doesn't match, they can follow through. If someone says, oh, actually it is my signature, then they move on. But let me just say this about Amendment 4, because yes, you have had fraudulent stuff with the signatures. I think that's been verified. To what extent, we'll see. But the whole thing is built on fraud. If you read that amendment, they don't define any of the terms that are in the amendment. Not one definition is written into that amendment. What does it do? It basically green lights, if any, you don't even have to be a physician. They literally take physician out of Florida. You can be any, quote, healthcare provider can green light an abortion up until the moment of birth. That is what that would be in our Constitution. They also strip the rights of parents to consent for a minor having abortion. It's a bait and switch. They write in the summary, oh, notification. That's not consent. Understand, that's rolling back rights for parents in the state of Florida. You will not have the right to consent. And anything else your minor child does, in terms of anything having to do with medical, the parent would have to consent. Constitutionally, they are taking this out, and I think it's the first a constitutional amendment that's actually taken away rights from parents in the history of our state. And then you have this issue of health care provider. All these terms matter because if it passes, that restricts the right of the people to legislate around that. And so healthcare provider is not a licensed physician. And look, if you're pro-life, obviously you're going to vote against this once you figure out what's in it. But there's other people, maybe they're not pro-life, but their view is like, okay, let the mother talk to the physician. The physician doesn't have to be a part of it under this amendment. How crazy is that? To say you don't even have to be a doctor and have right medical training, and you can green light abortion. What's going to happen is that will create a lot of bootleg abortion clinics around the state. Remember, we're in a region of the country where almost every state that borders us has very strong pro-life legislation. You're going to have people coming, and there's going to be a lot of people who take advantage, and people are going to make money off of this. That's why they're pouring millions and millions, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 million dollars. They're not doing that for their health. People will make money off of this. And it's interesting, the ballot impact statement that's going to accompany this amendment, because they don't define any terms, but it does talk about what are the potential impacts of this. And one of the potential impacts is you could see taxpayers be forced to fund abortions. How does that come? It doesn't say that in the amendment. Well, it didn't say that in Michigan either. And the same people behind this Amendment 4, they sued in Michigan saying that this should be required to be funded by taxpayers. So that lawsuit will happen in Florida if this passes. How the courts adjudicate that, I'm just not sure. But the reality is this whole thing is not what it seems. This is all built on deception, and they're running commercials that are just totally lies, saying there's no exception, saying there's somehow just normal health care. First of all, if a doctor says they can't provide health care, they're committing malpractice, because there's nothing in Florida law that would say that. So you can't go and just try to have this whole thing be a big deception. So I think the petition fraud, I think there was petition fraud, the extent we'll see, but that's been part and parcel about how this whole amendment has been handled from the very beginning. And what I tell people is, your default on amending the Constitution should be no, right? They should have to prove to you a really high bar why you would put something in the Constitution which effectively can't be changed. Same thing with this Amendment 3. You know, the Amendment 3, the media will refer to it as marijuana recreational legalization. That's not entirely true. It's a partial legalization, because this has been put in by basically one big weed company that spent $75–80 million. And yes, they write in there that you have a right to possess and use up to 3 ounces of marijuana, which the law enforcement tells me may be 50 to 100 joints. So that's more than any other state in the country. So they're putting that in the Constitution. So yes, you do have that right, but only if you buy it from them. You can't grow it in your backyard. You got to buy it from them. So they're creating in our Constitution a big weed cartel. And not only that, they're giving themselves protection from any civil liability at all, at any point in the distribution or cultivation process. That's not in the ballot summary. So when you as a voter go read the ballot summary, it does not tell you that they're giving themselves total immunity from liability. That's a pretty big thing to have. How the Florida Supreme Court let that summary on was a huge mistake and a bad decision. But that's what's happening. So they're not spending $70–80 million because they're just looking for kicks. They're doing it because they're locking in a captive market for their corporate interest. That's why they're doing it. And this idea of it can be regulated in public, I would just point out, if you read the text of the amendment, there is nothing in their proposed Amendment 3 that would authorize restricting use in public. In fact, it says there can be no penalties for possession and use, blanket. There's no exceptions to that. And even if somehow they put that in there, I don't think there's been any place in the country that successfully cabined the use. See, I would view it the opposite. I mean, I would say instead of putting a big weed cartel in the Constitution, instead of telling people you can buy it from them and then you're fine, but then it can be used in public, I would do the opposite. I think it's much more reasonable to say, you know, if people want to grow in their backyard and use it in their house, that's fine. Just don't bring it in public, right? We don't want it in our streets and stuff. And so they're doing the opposite, I think, of what kind of a pro-freedom approach would be. And it's interesting. We have medical marijuana in Florida. I implemented it. It had passed before I became governor. No one was really doing anything about it. And my view is like, you know, the people voted for it. We're going to do it. And it hasn't overrun the state because in that amendment, they put in there nothing in this amendment would mean that you have to accommodate the use of medical marijuana in public. They also put in that amendment there's no overriding civil liability like negligence and malpractice. So they put that in there. Amendment 3, this was written by the CEO of a big weed company, literally written by their CEO. They do not have any accommodation where you can do anything to restrict public. So when people say you can do it, they're just asserting that without any textual basis in the amendment. And then you also have this issue of liability. They could have made clear that the liability does not extend to negligence actions, product liability. I mean, what? If you sell someone defective weed and they have seizures, they can't sue you? That's what it says. It's a blanket immunity. So I think it's just this whole process of trying to pull the wool over the eyes of people is not a good process. That summary does not accurately tell voters what the impact of this. It's a very sanitized summary. You read it, you're like, oh, you know, what's the big deal? Man, there's a lot to unpack. And again, when you put this in the Constitution, you can't fix it at that point. The chance of having a constitutional amendment to fix either of these amendments is pretty much zero. So you're locking that in for future generations. Even if you elected 100 new representatives who campaign on fixing a problem generated by one of these two amendments, they wouldn't be able to. It takes power away from the people and basically invests the power in the courts to try to hash out all these different issues. And that's not what we want to do but I think it's very telling that you would write an amendment, try to claim that this is like for freedom, and then not let people grow the plant in their own backyards. They got to buy it from you. Who would think to use a constitution to do that? Totally inappropriate. Final thing I'll say, because they're now saying this is going to help education. There is nothing in Amendment 3 that has any provision for education. How many times have these people throughout the years said, if you just do what we want, education's going to benefit? I think there's a lot of people that may have been born on Tuesday, but not last Tuesday. They are not going to buy that. That is just a total canard. There's nothing in there that is benefiting that at all. And I also think, you know, to say that it's even going to be taxed, we don't know if it'll be taxed or not, right? Because that's a decision I think the legislature would have to make. The problem with taxing it is, what does that do to the black market? It increases the black market. And the thing about Colorado is when Colorado did this was, I think, 10 or 12 years ago. Colorado was the first state. And honestly, the argument was not crazy. The argument was, listen, people smoke marijuana. That's true in Florida. It's not limited to legal medical marijuana use. Obviously, people do it, and nobody's in jail for smoking marijuana in our state prison system. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Not one person is in jail for possession or use of simple amounts of marijuana. And any marijuana offenses, they've usually committed other crimes that are more serious, and that got tacked on. Put that aside. So you have this situation there. And it is, Colorado said if you tax it, you're going to have all these benefits. And you'll get rid of the black market. And that sounds good, right? I mean, why would you want to empower people who are violating the law? The black market in Colorado today is significantly larger than it was prior to them passing this. Why? Because when you tax it and you regulate it, it increases the price. It's basic economics. So people can get it off the black market for a lot cheaper. And so the demand grows. And when it's decriminalized, the use among society grows. And so there's actually a bigger black market. That's happened in California. It's happened in Colorado. And it's interesting. There are people in Colorado, a lot of them, who will say, you know, they're more liberal on weed. You know, they think people should be able to do it, but that it hasn't worked in Colorado. And people say, you know, don't do the mistake that we did. And I just look at it, just the public use aspect of it alone, we're not like these other states. I mean, we have, how many visitors did we have to Florida? I mean, we have, you know, huge amounts of visitors that come. We've had spring break. I mean, I had to put highway patrol. We work with the mayor of Miami Beach to make sure that the spring break, the inmates weren't running the asylum. It was actually very successful this year. But after COVID, we were like the place everyone wanted to come. So we did that. The restaurants were happy. They didn't have damage, all this stuff. But just imagine how that would interact with this being everywhere in our communities and our streets. I think it would absolutely hurt tourism. And that's why I think even if you taxed it, I think like Colorado, they really don't make money off it anymore. And I think for us, even if you said you're going to tax it, even if you did a static analysis, you'd also have to look, what would the impact be if there were rampant public use? How would that impact our tourism industry? How would it impact people wanting to come visit some of the places in Florida? And, you know, I've had people from these other states that come and they say that Florida, they like being in Florida better because a lot of the problems they have, whether it's rampant homeless, whether it's the drug use and look, in places like San Francisco, it's not just marijuana. I mean, they're doing everything on the street, and it's really gotten out of control. So from a quality of life perspective, I think it's pretty clear. But look at the experience that's happened in those areas. And, you know, there's not a single person in Florida State Prison that is in prison for smoking marijuana. The reality is there's people that do this in the privacy of their own home, and people are by and large just left alone in that. And of course there's a big medical marijuana industry. This is not about really giving people freedom. It's about enriching a small select big weed companies in this cartel, and that is not appropriate use for Florida's Constitution. Thank you.